Hi guys, how's it going? Ivano here, and today I want to do a little talking video, mostly about how to get better at Star Wars: The Old Republic, but also any other PvP game. And I also want to talk a little bit about my history with gaming and how I improved, and most importantly, what you can hopefully learn from that. So there's a lot of people that have done videos on this topic. Why should you listen to my advice? Well, I know this works because this is what I used to get better in multiple games now. And while I'm not saying that I'm the best player in the world at anything, at least I got to a level where I was good enough to have competed with the top ranked players in 2 games so far. So a little bit about my gaming history, I guess. The first game I talk about, of course, is Star Wars: The Old Republic. Now, PvP in this game was never as competitive as in some of the bigger esports titles, but nevertheless, back in Season 3, I was pretty happy with getting to 2000 rating in solo ranked arenas, and at the time being the #1 ranked player on the German PvP server at least. And then in Season 5, played a lot of group ranked on Tomb of Freedenat. And while our team rating back then was not the highest, we ended up beating the rank 1 team at the time a couple of games and even forced them to reroll classes to specifically counter our team setup. And I was quite happy about that back then, which of course is documented in the first video I ever uploaded on this channel. But besides Star Wars: The Old Republic, I have always loved racing games, including games such as Need for Speed, Assetto Corsa. But the first game I ever played as a kid was Grand Prix 2, which was released in 1996, so you know how old I am. You know, I loved racing games for a long time, but I always played them just for fun. I never really thought that I could compete with the guys that, you know, do the manual gear shifting and set the insane top times that you see on the leaderboards. But then 2020 came around and the lockdown hit, so I started grinding a lot of Gran Turismo Sport. And over the course of a year, just before I returned to Star Wars, I managed to reach A+ rating in Sport mode, which is the ranked mode in that game. And that was good enough to be in the top 1% of Gran Turismo Sport mode players, which at the time had around 200,000 active players. And while I didn't qualify for the World Tour events, at least I got good enough to be matched in the same lobbies with some of the esports players and even racing a future world champion. And losing, of course. So, while I don't think I'm the best gamer in the world or anything, I have some experience on how to get better, and I want to share the process which I use so that you can maybe learn from it and improve your own gameplay. So the first thing I would say is that when you're just starting out, you're trying to get better at a new game, accept that you are a noob. And in fact, it's good to be a noob because it means you have a lot to improve on. Now, when I play Star Wars, there's not that much for me to learn anymore. Right? I have played it already for 11 years. I've pretty much maxed out when it comes to my knowledge about the classes and the game. And the mistakes that I do make, they are pretty much the same. But I have a very hard time improving from where I am right now in Star Wars. But when you're new to a game, there's so many things that you can learn, that you can improve. And that's actually the best time. So when you're just starting out, accept that you are a noob at the game, stay humble. Don't come in there with a big ego just maybe because you're good at another game. Does not mean that you're going to be good at this new game. You still need to pay the price, learn about the game to climb the ladder. Then the second thing I would say is that you need to define what good actually means for you. So when you say you want to get good at a game, you need to set some kind of goal. And you always want to make sure that that's as concrete as possible. So something you can measure, for example, in Star Wars, maybe that could be something, you know, I want to do more than 10k DPS over a war zone. Or in another game, your goal could be to, for example, reach the top 1% of ranked players. And then once you reach that, you can set new goals. But make sure the goals are realistic and they are somehow measurable. Then the next thing you need to do is simply play a lot. And when you do that, try to be patient, try to play to improve. But the most important thing is that you play a lot. Because, you know, unless you really are a prodigy, progress doesn't happen overnight and you will need to put in hundreds or maybe even thousands of games to reach your goals. And that ties into the next point. You need to play what's fun to you. Because if you don't enjoy the class or even the game that you're playing, you're not going to stick with it, which really, you know, is almost a philosophical question. Do we enjoy what we are good at naturally, or do we get good at the things that we enjoy? And I believe it's the second thing. You need to enjoy the core gameplay in order to get good at something. Me, for example, I love my PowerTech. I played it for years, even though at times, it was not meta and there were better classes, but I just loved the core gameplay and feel of the class. And in the same way, I always loved cars and racing, so I didn't mind grinding the game for hours just to prepare for a competitive race that weekend, for example. So play what's fun to you. Then the next thing, of course, is learning from other players. And nowadays it's pretty easy. Almost everyone has a YouTube channel. So what you should do is simply watch or read guides and try to understand what other players are doing. And then of course there's also live streams, so you can even watch the best players play. So this is what I do when I start a game. I will watch every YouTube video, I will watch every stream I can find from the best players possible, and then try to imitate what they are doing and incorporate it into your own game. And even better than that, if you can, is finding a mentor, whether that's a paid coach if you really want to get serious, or you do it like me back in the day when I started playing Star Wars. I joined a guild, which was PvP focused, and I found better players to play with and learn from. And I even found a guy back then who was willing to kind of act as my mentor, was an older guy, and especially nowadays, every young guy thinks they are God's gift to PvP. But guys, take it from me, respect your elders, respect the guys that have been playing a game for 10 years or more. They have a lot to teach you. And that's how I got good at PvP. Okay, so once you learn the basics and you start climbing the ladder, the next thing to do is to learn from your competitors. So learn from the people that you're going up against who are at the same level as you at the moment. And to do that, I would recommend that you just be active in the community. Nowadays, most players have a Discord and 99% of them are happy to talk to you, talk about builds or strategies. So you can learn from guides, but you can also learn from talking to your competitors. Then there's 3 more tips. The first one, and I think this is where a lot of people struggle or maybe are too lazy to implement it, but that's recording and watching back your own gameplay. And this one is really crucial because I noticed this about myself even now. When you're watching guides and gameplay videos of the best players in whatever game, those guys that make it look really simple. And when you play yourself, you think you're doing the same thing, but in reality you are not. Because your perception of your own gameplay is wrong most of the time. In other words, you are not as good as you think you are. You are probably a little bit worse. And this is a hard truth, but nevertheless it's true. And you will see this if you record yourself and then watch back your own gameplay. And just note down your mistakes. And trust me, it's not a fun experience, but it's the best way to kind of have a reality check and see what you can improve about yourself. And I believe this is one of the most important things to actually get good. So record your games with something like OBS or Streamlabs. There's a lot of tools now. It doesn't even need to be like perfect quality. You don't have to upload it to YouTube, but just record it. And if there's a game where you were doing particularly bad, take a look at what happened, note down your own mistakes. And that leads me to the next point, which is focused practice. And focused practice, basically, there is a lot of people that have done many videos on how to actually implement this. So I'll be brief on it. But it's basically just looking at your mistakes, trying to note them down, trying to understand what's kind of at the core of the issue. So let's say the issue is that you're dying a lot in PvP, but what's the root cause of that, right? It could be that you're not playing around your healers, could be that you're overextending, or maybe you're simply not using the right build. Whatever it is, try to understand what is at the core of the issue that you're having, and then try to focus on improving that over the next couple of games. Important thing here, try to improve one thing at a time, not get better at everything at once. And only once you improve that thing, so let's say you're now not dying as often in PvP, but your DPS is kind of low, now you can focus on kind of pushing the limits a little bit more, because you understand better where the limits of you dying in PvP are, and you can work on optimizing your DPS next, for example. And then the final tip, and this is something I only learned over the last year really, but it ties into the earlier point about mentoring, is that one of the best ways to improve your own gameplay actually is to teach other people. This is something I learned from making guides and starting the YouTube channel, because once you try to teach other people, you will quickly see if you really understand the topic you are trying to teach. Because trying to explain a concept in the easiest, most simple way possible forces you to really challenge whether you yourself understand it. Or if you only talk bullshit, your students or the people that watch your guides will pretty quickly give you a reality check, and they will also ask questions that maybe you never considered, thereby making you a better player. So that's all I have for today, guys. Myself, I am now working on getting better at League of Legends, and I will apply this exact process to the journey there as well, trying to get from silver all the way up to diamond. So if you want to follow me on that journey, you can do so right here on this channel. That's all I had for today, guys. Hopefully this video helped a couple of you. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.